Okay, so today we're going to be recreating this simple hair system I've made. It's a cool look and super easy to achieve, so let's get started. So to begin with, we're going to want to set our scene. So let's just set our camera up first. If we actually go to our camera coordinates, we'll put in 0 for the X, we could put 0 for Y. Also change our rotation so they're all zeroed out. We can go up on the Y actually and then move backwards maybe. Something like this. Let's see actually, if we put, let's bring in a torus to begin with. Let's up the ring segments to 40 and we'll do the pipe segments to 24. I mean, this can all be adjustable, it doesn't really matter. Let's bring this in so we can just get a sense of how much space we have. So if we bring this camera back a bit more, I'm just thinking about how many shapes I got in here. That'll probably be about, this will do for now. And just so we don't mess up the camera position, I'm going to add a, where am I looking? Rigging, add a protection tag so that we don't accidentally move this camera around. I'm quite happy to, I might actually, yeah, I'm going to move the focal length up to, let's say 60, which means we are going to need to move the camera back. So if I just turn this to none, go back to the coordinates and drag this back, we've got our framing again. And then we can go back to our protection tag and lock it. So now we've got our camera set up, we can actually bring in some shapes so we can actually get our composition set up. I'll bring in a sphere first. Bring this, let's come out of our camera, just kind of adjust. I'm actually going to change this to change its type to hexahedron because I don't want the nasty geometry. This is way better. And I might up this to 48 and then I might bring its size down just a little bit, maybe 90, see how that looks. We can move some bits about, we can duplicate this sphere. I'm going to make this one smaller, maybe 70. Bring this down here, we'll switch back to take the lines mode off. And I'm going to make another copy of the torus. I'll make this one smaller. I'm just going to hold T and drag for this one. I'm not going to do it in the properties. If we switch back to our camera, we can sort of see what we've got. It doesn't really matter how you set this up right now. I'm just kind of getting a rough idea of how much space the composition needs. And then I'm also going to bring in a tube. I'm going to come out the camera again for this one so we can figure out what we want it to look like. Let's click the tube and turn up the rotation segments, do something like 30. That's a lot better, and we can just use this little handle to extend it and also make the hole through the tube a little bit wider. And then I might just chuck a bevel on the tube and turn this up to maybe 8 and then add 6 segments. Doesn't look too bad. And then I might just adjust slightly. I might make this slightly smaller and then bring, not that handle, the inner handle, inside handle. Bring that in a little bit. And I think that might be an alright size. Maybe might be too big, but can always come back to adjust it. Go back to our camera. This doesn't look too bad. If we hit this gizmo so we can actually move it in world space, not local. I think this will do for now. And then we also have a cube hiding in the back. So I'll add that in and move him back over a little bit. Maybe we'll come out the camera. And he's going to be a lot smaller as well, so hold T and scale that down. I'll just add a bit of rotation. Yeah, that'll do for now. So I mean, yeah, that doesn't need to be perfect, but now that we've got everything in, we can kind of see the spacing and yeah, we can sort of just get an idea for the frame. So now to kind of get these all really kind of snug to each other, you can use this dynamic place tool. So we click that and then we select all our shapes. And this little purple gizmo here, we grab this and start scaling in. You see how everything just becomes a dynamic object and it all reacts to each other like they've got collisions. So we can play around with this until we get a look we like, and we can also use the rest of the gizmos, spin it around, or if you want to just adjust one single object, you can do that. Just make sure you don't use the regular keys like E, R and T to move, because once you do that, it's not actually, I made the mistake, I thought that it would continue with the dynamic movement, but it doesn't, so let me undo that. So you need to just actually click and drag and use these gizmos. So just try find like a desired look that you want. So I kind of want to see a little bit more, yeah, there we go. Bit better. And then I could keep this tube facing away instead. That's not too bad. I might move all of them over though, so I will hold E for this one and drag over to the left a bit so we can keep it all centered. Okay, I don't mind that look. So now if we set up some basic lighting, because if I drag this over and hit the render preview, can see there's not really any lighting, so we don't have it's not looking too interesting right now. So to keep things organized, I'm just going to use my pre-made folders, and with my lighting folder selected, I'll add an area light, and whilst clicking shift, so it adds it to this folder. I'm going to come out of my camera view again, and with this new light selected, I'm going to just drag this back a sec, drag it over, and if we right click on this light and go down to the animation tags and look for target, we add that, and see this eyedropper tool on target object. If we click that, I'm just going to select this lighting folder because that is in the center of the world. But if you don't have a folder like me, then you can always just add a new no object and target it, or just to a shape if you want. But yeah, I always just tend to do this. Now when we drag our light around, it will continue to point in the direction of our scene. So I'm just going to expand these a little bit, maybe bring it out, maybe forward a little bit, yeah, I'm happy with that. And then I'm also going to add one for the back, so I'm going to hold Control and drag and release to make a copy, and then we can literally just move this one over, and because it's got that target tag on it, we don't need to worry about adding that back on, and it's still going to be pointing to our scene. So I kind of want this to give a little bit of almost like a rim light to the backs of the shapes. You just extend this one a little bit. We go now into our camera and enable the rendering mode. We can get a better idea now for how things are going to be lit. So I might go to our first one. I'm going to change the name to main, and I'm going to change this one to back. So with our main one selected, I'm going to let's turn down the exposure a little bit, maybe to 1.5, minus 1.5. And with the backlight, let's see how much it's affecting it. I kind of want it to be fairly strong, but not too strong. So I might just go for minus 0.3 at the moment. So now I guess we can start adding some hair systems. So with my torus selected first, we go up to simulate and hair object, add hair, click that. It's now added a hair system for that torus. You see it looks a bit crazy, and it's definitely way too long. So I'm going to lower this length. I don't want to drag it actually, because if you stop the progressive rendering, we can lower this length to maybe 20. Let's see how that looks. Not too bad. We're gonna play with the shape and stuff. So I think for now that might be okay. For the segments, I mean, you could just turn this down to like 4. We're not doing any hair dynamics, so we don't need that many segments. And then also if we go into the hairs tab, we can also maybe turn this one down to 6. Turn the count up to 70,000. And I'm going to go into dynamics. I'm going to turn off dynamics. We don't need that. Okay, so now we've got our hair count all set up. We can come back to adjust this later, but for now we're going to head over to the material. So this gets created when you add a hair object into your scene. So we're going to open this, double tap if it wants to bring it up. There we go. So for the color, if we open this, for my setup, I clicked this drop down for texture and added a noise. So if you click on the noise texture and then make sure you're in the shader tab, I've got this global scale, which I think I might turn up to, let's try 300. I want it a bit bigger, and then to actually see the differences, we need to turn this contrast all the way up. So now you can sort of see we're getting these like nice contrast between the noise texture. So I might even turn this down to 200, see how that looks. Or maybe change the seed, go forward a seed. Looks interesting. So you just want to keep going through the seeds until you find something you like, or keep adjusting the scale. I might even go to 150%. That doesn't look too bad. I'm going to change the color as well, so I'm going to change the black to the blue. Let's do something like there. Doesn't look too bad. Let's go back to 100 and see. Yeah, maybe we don't need to change it. Maybe we could just stay at 100. So now you can see how there's gaps in between the hairs. Depending on what you're looking for, if you just want the hairs to be perfectly straight, then you are probably going to need to add more hairs, or you can go to thickness and you've got the root and the tip. So I'm going to up the root to 0.5 and put the tip to 0.3. So it just thickens each individual hair, but obviously if you've got just straight hairs, then it's still going to have gaps and you're going to need to up the count. But if you don't really care too much about the shape of the hair, then a good way to kind of make it look a little thicker and more fuller, I guess, is add in some kink. So you see what in the little preview, it's kind of made it all a little bit messier. So where the hairs are kind of overlapping, like going across each other, it helps kind of make the hair look fuller in the viewport. Maybe up the variation to 40, and maybe I'll lower the amount just a bit, maybe 85%. The color, now that we've added this kink, it's kind of mixing in some of the white and the blue together. So just to keep that sort of keeping it looking pretty saturated, I'm going to head to specular and I'm going to drop the strength of the specular down to try 40%. So you see how it's making those blues like a lot punchier, they're like a lot stronger. You can add more things, you can add frizz, all kind of doing a similar thing, making more of a fuller look. So now that we've got this set up on one, all we kind of need to do now is on our other shapes. So if I select this sphere and head to simulate, hair objects, add hair, and then we can just, again, adjust the parameters to what you need, what you like. I'll leave the count there for now, change that to 6, and then instead of having to set this all up again, we can just drag the hair material we set up and drop it onto that new hair system. So now it's following the same style as the torus we just set up. So we could go through and do this for the rest of the shapes. You can see now we've pretty much got that setup I created in the example. But of course, if you wanted to create different variations, you can always just copy and paste the original material we've made and just make changes to it. Because obviously you can see on the spheres, it's kind of the noise scale is almost lower, I guess, because we're seeing a lot more of that noise compared to the torus, where it's there's a lot less. It's almost like it's zoomed in quite a bit more. So you could create variations if you wanted them all to match a bit more. Another thing as well, I know for some people their PC might not be able to handle this many hairs, it might be too heavy. So come back into our hair objects and you could either lower the segments or lower the count, like the actual hair count. And it's probably helpful to turn off dynamics if you don't need them on, because that's gonna definitely slow things down if you've got the hairs moving. So I'm just gonna do a render of this, see how it looks. So mine's just finished. It took about 2 minutes to render. I personally would up the hair count on most of these because I do quite like the really thick fullness look. But for the sake of being able to show things a little bit quicker, I've just kept the numbers at a bit of a lower count. I think for my original example, I upped these quite a bit, but obviously you can just play around with that depending on your system. So that's kind of it for the look. It's a super simple setup, really easy to do. The noise texture just really gives it an interesting look, and it's just so easy to do. It's not complex at all, so you can really achieve some nice looks with it. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you learned something new or if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.